Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Chase to Summit podcast. I'm your host, Dave. Today, I've got a really exciting episode. I reached out to a fellow creator on YouTube named Mark Lewis because I really wanted to have a chat with him on my podcast, and fortunately, he said yes. So in this episode, I'll be chatting with Mark Lewis. If you haven't checked out his channel, go over and check him out on YouTube. It's called Mark Lewis. He's also got a website called marklewis.co.uk. Check him out there. The really interesting thing about Mark is that, first of all, he just crossed over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. His content is mainly around fitness and running and cycling and Zwift, kind of a little bit of everything. And his whole motto is being quote unquote above average, just being above average, not being elite, but doing things to kind of prove people wrong. And his content is really inspiring for me personally. As a creator, closing in on 40, I'm in my late 30s now. I've got 4 kids, he's got 4 kids, and he's older than me. So I thought it might be insightful to kind of see where his head is at his point of in this journey, and kind of see if I can glean some information from him. So in this episode of the podcast, I tried to dig into a little bit of his background, where he came from, what he's into, and all of that stuff. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. Before we dive into the episode, I do want to thank the Patreon members and YouTube members. If you are a Patreon or YouTube member, you can actually see this episode on camera on YouTube or on Patreon. So go check that out. We're actually filming this whole thing, so that's pretty cool. But if you're not on Patreon or YouTube, you can just listen to the audio. So enjoy that too. I also want to give a quick shout out to Liquid IV, who is supporting the podcast now, and I'm really appreciative for that. Check out Liquid IV. I've been using them for years for all of my hydration needs. Literally, I crack a Liquid IV in the morning, sometimes after a couple of cups of coffee, to kind of rehydrate myself. And they're also great for running and things like that. They make this powdered mix that's a hydration multiplier. And if you use code Chase to Summit, all one word, at Liquid IV's website, which is linked in the show notes down below, you can actually get a huge discount off your order. So go check that out. And with all of that out of the way, we're going to dive right into this episode of the podcast with Mark Lewis. All right, Mark, thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate you carving the time out of your day. I know you're a busy guy.
No problem at all.
For the listener, we're going to talk about YouTube a lot today, my man, because you know the struggles.
Yes, I do.
For the listener, can you give me like a 2-minute intro to what your channel is and what you want it to be?
Yeah. What is it? It's it's kind of become what it is. I never really set out for it to be. Actually, let me go back. So I started it just as a means of me kind of putting holiday videos somewhere other than them just kind of getting lost in my Dropbox file for the next 100 years. So it was just that. It was just so I could say to family, here's me on holiday. And it literally that. It was nothing more than that. And then I started recording some Spartan races I was doing, and people that I didn't know started watching. So basically, not my mum was watching. And I thought, oh my God, that's incredible! Like 4 people have watched my Spartan race, and I don't know who those 4 people are, which is staggering. And then 5 and 6 and 7 and so on. And then we got to the start of COVID, and I was stuck in the garage working out in the house, and started filming my Zwift races on the indoor bike. And lots of people, relatively speaking, liked watching that. And suddenly I thought, oh, this is not only are now 100 people watching, but this is now making like $1 a month, which is insane. I mean, it's. I suddenly thought the fact that I'm making any money, even $1, for just mucking about is mind-boggling. Yeah, and then it kind of snowballed from there to the point where now it is me working out. I did a video a while ago, maybe a year a bit ago, where I just spoke about how I had got finally to being able to run a sub 20-minute 5K. That for me was the kind of the turning point for YouTube, where I spoke about how I'd achieved this thing, which is not elite by any means at all.
Hey man, that's elite in my book. I still can't crack 20 minutes, so you're good.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take 100 randoms off the street, then I'm probably faster than 99 of them. But then one of them will be a 14-year-old kid that runs track at school that will destroy me. So, and I kind of coined this phrase to me, which was that I was just above average, and I like the fact that I like that. I mean, that's it. If you take a random 100 people off the street, I will be faster, fitter, stronger, whatever than them. And you'll always be able to find people far, far better than me. But I don't care, because Joe Bloggs isn't. And it dawned on me that actually that wasn't a particularly hard thing for me to have achieved. It took time because I didn't really know what I was doing. But nothing that I do physically is something that anybody within reason couldn't put their mind to and do within 6 months, depending on where they start. I mean, I'm not. Yeah. For example, running a 20-minute 5K is a good example. Most human beings, if you're fit and healthy, or you can get yourself fit and healthy, and you're not particularly old. I mean, I started at 35 and not being able to run. My 5K was 42 minutes when I started. You plod away at it and you'll get to 20 minutes eventually if you really focus on it. So that became the channel. It just became, hey, look, no matter where you are at the moment, put a bit of effort in, a bit more than most do, and you'll end up being a bit better than most. And here's me doing just that. Not being elite, not being the best by any stretch, because there's plenty of people on YouTube doing that or saying that already. Just there aren't many sort of nearly 50-year-old guys saying, my kids are now old or older, I have time on my hands, I've got a bit of money to buy tech and gadgets and stuff. There isn't many people on YouTube filling that space. But there's obviously a ton of people in that space out in the real world. There's a load. You go to any 10K run, local fun run, and it'll be full of guys in their 40s and 50s and girls, ladies, women, people that are getting back into exercise or never stopped, but are no longer as good as they would have been when they were 20, but still wanting to push themselves, or wondering where they will get if they do push themselves. And when they jump on the internet and look for inspiration, it isn't always that forthcoming. If you Google YouTube fitness, you're probably going to get some 20-something jacked guy that never sets foot outside the squat rack.
Hey, let me stop you there, because if you flex your arm right now, it's you got some guns there. So
yeah, but. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's actually a good point, sort of. I do, but it's of no value, really. It doesn't help me in anything that I do, really. I mean, I've got into high rocks lately, which has a bit of strength involved, but equally, well, actually, here's a perfect example. He won't mind me saying it. The guy that beat me in my age group at the High Rocks event I ran at in London a few weeks ago was a much lighter, much weaker chap that just outran me, just blew me away. Couldn't keep up with him. So my photographs from the High Rocks event, where I looked like a monster, were awesome. I out photographed him. But I didn't beat him. So no, but I lift heavy and I eat to maintain my size purely for my own childish ego. And also I'm 6'6", so if I wasn't, it'd be very easy at my height to look very tall and skinny. So I since I was 10 years old, I've always tried to avoid that. But I don't set out to be big and jacked for the sake of it. It doesn't. Sure. The older I've got, the more pointless that whole world seems to be to me.
Yeah, it's funny because I used to be really into heavy lifting as well, and I'm for reference, I'm 5'6", so I'm a small fella compared to you. And I was 200, I was like 205 at some point. So I was this big muscle head. And like you said, once you lean down, you don't look like you're like too big that you can't. I mean, obviously you're running a sub 20-minute 5K, so I think you're doing all right. But once I leaned down, I felt like, wow, this is life-changing. I can actually run, and I don't feel like I'm lugging around like cinder blocks with me. So yeah,
absolutely, I love that feeling that I can jump out of my chair now, and I could go and run a marathon, or I could run a mile, or I could walk in the gym and just about get a 200 kilo deadlift off the floor. Maybe, but I don't need. In fact, a good example. I worked out yesterday. I was doing deadlifts yesterday, but because of my High Rocks event, which involves things like farmer's carry, I need to work on my grip. So for deadlifting, rather than what I would have done in the past, which would have been go really heavy and just pick heavy stuff off the floor, instead I think I dropped the weight down to 180 kilos maybe. Which is, it's not even 2 times my body weight. I'm 100 kilo body weight, but I was doing really super slow reps. I think the entire set took me about 1:30, and basically I was just trying to hold on to this thing as long as possible. And so that for me, not only do I lift reasonably heavy, I was able to hold it for a long time. When I put it down, I was able to jump on the treadmill and run a 3:45 kilometer. That all-round ability is something that I value now at 48, way more than I did at 20. At 28, I wouldn't have gone on a treadmill, and I wouldn't have. Like, why would you go on a treadmill when you're 28? What's the point of that? I'm loving the all-roundness of it. Yeah.
Let me back up a little bit to the beginning of your YouTube channel. I think I saw in a video. It was one of your recent videos where you kind of answered questions from your viewers. And I found a lot of your answers very fascinating. As somebody on YouTube myself, I hear a lot of similar questions. But one thing I found really fascinating was the reason why I asked how you started your channel is you mentioned that you only started it to essentially beat your kid.
Well, that was the reason I literally. Yeah, that was why I literally, the day I set up the account was that. So basically I had booked to go to South Africa on a motorbike with my wife, fiance at the time, Jenna, and I was thinking, I'm gonna video this. And I'd done Africa before on a motorbike solo, and I'd done it with a couple of GoPros, and I'd come back from that with hours and hours of footage that was useless. Well, not useless, but it was boring. It was kind of classic motorcycle footage, which is someone puts a helmet cam on and they film for 2 hours. And then they kind of show their friends, and their friends are like, okay, we've seen four minutes of the desert. We don't need to see the other 3 hours. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go back. I'm going to film better. I want to film me off the bike, talking to camera. I want to make a little movie out of this. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking to my kid, who then was 11. And he said, you should put it on YouTube. And I said, I don't know what that even means. I literally don't know what that means. At the time, I obviously knew what YouTube was, but the only reason I would ever go to YouTube was if maybe my washing machine broke and I want a tutorial how to fix it. That to me was what YouTube means. It wasn't for entertainment. Yeah. And he goes, I've got a YouTube account, and I put a video online, and 1,000 people have watched it. And I thought, well, that means it must be easy because there's no way he'd possibly be able to do anything remotely entertaining. So whatever he'd stuck up there must have been rubbish, and therefore it must be easy to watch. Get 1,000 people. And I said, well, nothing you do is creative and entertaining, so that must be easy to beat. And he said, well, let's see you try. So I asked him to set up an account for me because I didn't know how to do that. He set up my account September 11th, 2018. And then I said, how do I go from owning a GoPro to putting something on the internet? I literally knew nothing, absolutely nothing. I knew how to hit start on a GoPro, and I now knew how to log into my own YouTube account. And I knew nothing in the middle. And So I watched a bunch of YouTube tutorials on how to be a YouTuber. I was watching a lot of Casey Neistat stuff.
Oh, me too. I loved that back in the day.
Right.
So good.
So yeah, which was good and bad. I mean, the good bit was that I discovered that he used. I was a PC guy, so I thought I need to use Apple because the guy's using iMacs and stuff. He's using Final Cut Pro. I didn't know what these things were, but I knew he was using them. So I went out and bought them. I literally just went out and bought everything I thought I might need. If Casey Neistat used it, I went and bought it. And then on the plane to South Africa, I had downloaded a bunch of videos and I watched just 10 hours of tutorials on how to use Final Cut Pro.
Nice.
I didn't know what a cut was, an edit was. I knew nothing. I literally knew nothing. And by the time I got back from Africa, I knew enough to throw a video together. And it wasn't great, but it was, for a home movie, it was amazing. For a YouTube video, it was nothing special. And that was it. That was it, really. The Casey Neistat thing is interesting because what I also came back with was this is the danger of watching others, is that what I've learnt to do is watch others. When I see something cool that I want to do, think, I want that little bit, and I go and learn how to do that little bit, and I ignore everything else. What I did in the beginning was I'd watch the entirety of someone's work and think, I want to be that. So I'm trying to make kind of Casey Neistat style videos that everyone does. You put the camera down elsewhere, then you sort of run up to it like you've just arrived, and all that kind of nonsense. And you quickly realise that either one of two things happen. Either you look like somebody else, it looks really derivative and boring, or it's just rubbish because you can't do it very well. I mean, the guy is obviously a trained filmmaker, and I'm not. So what I then discovered was, over time, what is it that I do that I can do well, rather than learning to do something else well. And pretty quickly, I concluded that actually what I don't want to be doing is what most fitness YouTubers do, which is out and about and kind of talking to camera and all that. I don't want to be doing that because I like writing a script. I like creating a story arc in my video and then narrating it and kind of taking people on a journey through it. And the out and about footage of me doing something is then the backdrop to my commenting on it. And I can do that quite okay. That's the bit I enjoy. So I thought, actually, I'll do that. And the fact that no one else is doing that, everyone else is starting their fitness YouTube video by, here's me in the gym holding the camera and talking to camera. I thought, I can't do that. I not only would my gym not allow it, I wouldn't know what to say. I've got no script. It doesn't work for me. So I thought, screw it. That's what other people do. I won't do that. I'll sit at my desk. I'll have a script. I'll write some jokes, and I'll try and make it funny. And then more and more people started saying, "Hey, your videos are really funny." And I thought, "Oh, that's cool. That's actually quite." I was, in a way, what I realised was that if someone says it's funny, they forget about whether or not they're interested in it. So what was happening was that the people that liked my cycling stuff, when I showed them a running video that they would not necessarily be interested in, were saying, do you know what? I hate running. I'm never going to run. But man, that was a funny video. Yeah. And so I thought, this is it. This is what I need to do. I need to just, if I just make everything funny, people will watch anything I want to do. So I can do high rocks. I can do rowing. I can do running. I can do, I can talk about being a vegan. Here's one. I can talk about being a vegan. And as long as it's funny, people that want to just, whatever, go and eat your own dog. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. You can be the most carnivorous person out there. If the guy's funny, you're going to find it entertaining. Whereas if I just sit down and say, hey, everyone should be a vegan and, don't eat your dog, that's naughty, people would not, that'd be put off by that. So the funny thing just allowed me to, sort of spread my subject matter really wide and bring people with me because they just end up watching because they were watching me, which is an amazing place to have got to. So I mean, it's the dream, isn't it? Really, is that people will watch your video because you're in it,
Yeah. I think
ahead
that's
of the content.
I think that might be your secret sauce, though, is you've got this balance of being very relatable. I mean, just as I get 4 kids, I'm closing in on 40, so I'm watching you like, oh, there is hope. I can do this. You know what I mean?
A little bit.
So, yeah. So I think there's this like relatable nature to your content. It's funny. It's, it's motivational. It's got a lot of these elements that I don't care about Zwift personally. And I've watched some of your Zwift stuff. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And I think to your point, the biggest compliment you can get being on YouTube, like for me, I get someone who watches a watch review and they're like, I don't even want to watch, but I liked your video. So I watched it and I'm like, that is awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Or the other way around, where somebody watches your watch review because they're just interested in the watch, but they think this guy was cool. What else is he doing? Oh, here he is, whatever, kayaking or something. Yeah. But he's the same funny guy, entertaining guy. And people then watch that, which is, somebody said to me the other day, where was it? It might have been at a High Rocks event. Someone said to me, "You're like the Jeremy Clarkson Top Gear. You're like the kind of the Top Gear of fitness. Like you don't really know what you're doing, but you like what you're doing, and consequently, people will watch whether you're talking about Formula One or NASCAR or driving an old Jeep up a mountain. It doesn't really matter as long as you're doing something." And when I first, I'm not a huge fan of Top Gear, so my gut reaction was that's not very good. But then I thought, actually, that's absolutely perfect. I'm happy to be that. I'm happy to be the Top Gear of fitness. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know a bit more than most just by the nature of doing it. Yeah. If it's funny and entertaining, that's. I even changed my YouTube banner to say motivation and entertainment. Like that's it. This is not advice. This is not do what I do. It's just, do you watch a video and think, do you know what? I had a laugh. I now want to go for a run or a walk or not eat that cake or whatever it is that you're motivated to do.
It's also less risky because now you're not giving advice where somebody goes and follows your training plan and then hurts themselves, and now you're accountable. So it's nice to be that middle ground, right?
Oh, absolutely. I have no. It also means that I can do what I like within reason. I mean, some of the challenges that I might do, or even things like being a vegan, which I appreciate, it's out there. It's kind of on the periphery of what the norm of people are doing, but it doesn't matter because I'm not saying to people be a vegan or row or even go for a run. I'm just saying this is what I'm doing to be fit and healthy. You now go do what you want to do to be fit and healthy. If you want to be a running vegan that also deadlifts, cool. Then copy me. Well, why not? But equally, you don't have to be. You can be a carnivorous cyclist that doesn't know what a gym looks like. It doesn't matter. Which allows me to be, in simple terms, just allows me to have more people watching, irrespective of what I'm talking about. I'm not the cycling guy or the running guy or I'm just the funny guy.
The guy,
in a way, which I'd always wanted to be, but couldn't figure out how to do it. Yeah, and then just discovered that actually it's just telling some jokes every now and again. We've
gotten 22 minutes into this, and I haven't even congratulated you on 100K. That's a huge accomplishment. How does that feel? Does that change? I'm curious, just for my own. I'm driving to that direction. I'm trying to get there. Does it change your perspective on what this is that you're doing? Does it make it, does it add more pressure to the whole thing?
No, 100 didn't really. No, oddly, probably 20,000 did, because at 15, 20, 25,000, it suddenly becomes apparent that there are now enough people clicking, yes, I want to see more, that it's not, you can't just put it down to 1,000 weirdos that slipped and accidentally hit subscribe and they didn't mean to. There's enough people now saying that this works. If you have 20,000, anybody out there, if you've got 20,000 subscribers and you've got them over a reasonably sensible period of time, you haven't been at it for 15 years or something. Yeah. Then you are, the only thing holding you back is is enough people seeing you. And that's slightly outside of your control. People will click on you because 20,000 have. They just need to see you to click on you. And so once I realized that, I just relaxed a bit and thought 100,000 will come, or 50 or whatever it was, whatever I was heading towards. And then, to be fair, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 came so quickly that I didn't really have time to think about it. It became very obvious that I was going to hit 100,000 in May or June, back in February or March. So
you had some videos pop off, like that Eliud Kipchoge video. That was huge, man. Yeah. Congratulations on that. Super entertaining. That's why it was like fun to watch. I watched the whole thing.
Well, what was funny about it was it took so little. I literally, me and my kid, one of my older kids, we said we'd seen a few similar sort of videos where people. I'm always fascinated about how there is a gulf of difference between good and really good.
Yeah.
I used to play basketball as a kid, and people would say to me, "Oh, well, you're probably dunking all over the place because you're 6'6". I was like, "Hang on a minute, you don't understand. When whatever LeBron James is doing, that's a different thing to just a tall person that can play. But people, unless you are in that sport, people don't get it." And I'd got good enough at running that I knew what Eliud Kipchoge was doing was staggeringly good. Whereas people that are slower runners might look at me and almost put me not in with Eliud Kipchoge, but just think, "Oh, you're all fast." And I wanted to demonstrate, no, I'm fast, but he's alien. I mean,
superhuman. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. And so I like the idea of just saying, look, here's me on a treadmill. Here's me jogging at the speed I used to jog at when I was starting to run. You might recognize this. This is a 40-minute park run jog. That's what it looks like. And took it all the way up to, I'm running as fast as he runs, and I'm 2 minutes, I'm dead. And it took 15 minutes in the gym to do it. Literally, I kind of got home and I had this 15 minutes of footage and thought, I now need to write 10 minutes of funniness to go along with this because this is just me on a treadmill. This is lame. And then boom, it goes and does 2 million views and got picked up by all the online men's health magazines.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, a few of the online like when you're scrolling through your Facebook and you see YouTubers' videos just kind of thrown at you. Mine ended up being one of those. In fact, what was amazing was that on Men's Health Online magazine, I featured on their website underneath an article about Stallone, which you asked about you asked about the 100K thing. To be honest, having featured an article about Stallone, and then below me was Jessica Biel's workout.
Oh wow!
I kind of thought I've reached peak amazingness. Like the 100K is going to be just like whatever. So that was really good. And also what was quite nice was that it was the third video that had blown up. But what had happened was they'd all been relative to where I was at. So for example, in Christmas of 2020, I had a video do really well, which is me falling off my Zwift bike, bizarrely. When I say do really well, it got a couple of thousand people watch it almost immediately, and I was used to getting maybe 100 over a couple of days. So relative terms, that was staggering numbers. And then the following year, I did a little transition video about how I'd ridden the bike in the garage for 500 days and how good I got. It was a kind of before and after thing. And again, that went and did a couple of 100,000 views when I was used to getting maybe 2,000 views. So, and then the Kipchoge thing again. So every time those videos have got bigger and bigger, but they've always been relative to where I was at the time, if that makes sense. My popping off videos became big, even relative to still doing quite well. It felt like, which was nice because it felt like there was a kind of a natural progression happening rather than I just got staggeringly lucky on day one, something had done really well, and it wasn't going to be indicative of what was to come. I kind of felt like, actually, no, I've got very, very lucky, but it's also moving you can plot the trajectory, and it does appear that it makes sense that more people would now be watching because more people would start watching. And that threw the numbers. But what was nice was it threw the numbers up, obviously, and you always, when a video pops off, you always get a downturn that follows, it all settles back to normal. But every time it settles back, what I found was that it wouldn't ever settle back to where it had been prior to a video blowing up. So you kind of take 4 steps up and then 2 steps back, and then 10 steps up and 3 steps back. And then when the Kipchoge video happened, it went up to, I was getting millions of views in a month. It kind of then settled back to 1.5 million a month now. So it's always settled back much higher than where it was before it blew up, which again is nice. If a video just goes crazy and then it all disappears, which happens to some people, then you're just there thinking the algorithm kind of over exaggerated how good I might be, as it were, or how lucky I might be. But it felt quite natural in terms of its progression. But yeah, I was lucky. It helped.
Yeah. So I got a couple of more YouTube questions, and then we'll move into, I'm not sure how many people even care about this stuff, but I do. And this is my podcast, so I'm going to ask them anyways.
Yeah.
So is this your job now? Have you made that transition yet, or are you still working that day job?
It is. I regard it as my job. If people ask me, I say YouTuber. I say YouTuber slightly because it's just funny as a nearly 50-year-old guy just to say I'm a YouTuber.
Hey man, I have a hard time saying it myself, and I'm only 40. So,
but I am. I mean, it is now full time. I still have. Basically, I work still in financial services. I have a financial services business that I've run for nearly 30 years.
Oh wow!
And it's being transitioned to somebody else. It's being sold in slightly simple terms. That's a process that takes time. So by July, August, it will be complete, and I will have nothing other than YouTube. At the moment, I'm literally doing YouTube full time and having to work full time on the transition of that other business to someone new. So I'm doing 2 jobs basically. But yeah, as of July, August at the latest, it'll be YouTube and nothing else.
Now, I'm curious, do you think that's going to change how you come up with ideas and film? Because like once it's your money, once it's your mortgage payment and your bills, it's a different look at views and clicks, right? Because you're not going to do stuff for fun. You might. But I feel like that's the struggle a lot of people face when they make that transition is, do you still have fun? Are you still enjoying it, or are you just looking to get that paycheck at the end of the month?
There's 2 sides to that. One side of it is that I've been very lucky with my other job in that it gave me a good income, which allowed me to do YouTube in the first place and invest into it. The kit isn't cheap if you do it at a reasonable level, and when that business is gone, there will be residual income that comes in off of that. I couldn't quite live on it, but equally YouTube will not be my only money, even though it would be my only job.
Oh, nice.
I appreciate that's a very lucky place to be that not everyone obviously gets to benefit from. So that's nice. Having said that, when YouTube got to about 30,000 subscribers, and I realized that there was a possibility it could make enough money that it would be more than a hobby, I decided to start treating it like a proper job then. So actually it's felt for a while now like a proper job. I sit down with my wife every couple of days and we play out what good video ideas we can come up with, and we made sure that we got on top of things like Patreon and Instagram and Facebook and our own website, and I do this with my sport. In fact, actually my stupidly expensive triathlon bike behind me is a good example of this. When I decided I was going to do triathlon, which I'd never done before, I went and bought a stupidly expensive Spaceship carbon fiber bike. And people said to me, that's daft. Why would you're a beginner, why'd you do that? I said, well, hang on, is it faster? Is it better? It's all those things, yes, but. Well, there's no but then. If that's the best thing, that's the best thing. It makes no sense. In some sports, there are things, for example, I've done a bit of rock climbing at a very beginner level. And when I went to buy the fanciest rock climbing shoes, the guy said, you won't be able to wear them. You need beginner shoes. There's a reason why. But actually,
and they hurt like hell, man. Those shoes.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are some sports where the top end kit just doesn't work for a beginner. But as a beginner, I sat on my spaceship bike and I could cycle it faster than any other bike I'd better cycle. So people use the phrase "all the gear, no idea" to sort of put down beginners that throw money or so. I use the phrase "start as you mean to go on." Do I want to be good at triathlon? Then get a good bike. So the same with YouTube. I thought, do I want to do this properly? Yes. Then I do need a camera that can film in 4K, and I do need to get decent. I've got multiple screens here for editing faster. I need to have a whiteboard to put ideas on and basically treat it like a job. So actually, the transition to full time and nothing else to think about is purely positive. It comes with no stress or worry because I've been doing it. The beautiful thing will be that all I need to think about is coming up with cool ideas that I enjoy doing. I just won't have to do anything else. And I think I've now come to terms with where my ideas balance things I like to do and am proud of doing and feel when I hit upload, think, good. I like that, and people will like that too. It's very easy. It's very easy to produce kind of clickbaity nonsense that I wouldn't feel happy producing, but would get views. I could do it once or twice. I couldn't do that for the next 10 years.
Now,
I think I've got the balance.
Where do you find where do you come up with those ideas? Where does that motivation come from? Do you whiteboard it out? Do you have a notepad where you just jot things down, or what's your workflow like?
Yeah, I have literally that. I have a little. In fact, I downloaded just the other day a little notes app on my iMac that shares itself to my iPhone and all my iDevices and to Jenna, my wife's as well.
Oh, cool.
And when we come up with an idea, we just put it into this shared app. It's kind of like notes basically, and then every couple of days we'll sit down and we'll move those ideas around relative to where they need to be produced. And where those ideas come from, they come from really three places. They come from following what we're doing with our lives. So at the moment, for example, Jenna and I are both training for high rocks competitions. So that involved the other day a VO2 max test. We off to London and did these tests and DEXA fat scans and stuff.
I saw your Instagram post of her sharing some sentiments about how she felt about that particular test.
Well, it was and she didn't enjoy it. And interestingly, that's my video is putting the, because actually it's interesting. What I have from that day is an hour's footage of us running on a treadmill. And that's pretty much it. What I now need to do today is write a story that then becomes the backdrop to. And actually what you say there, her sentiments about it, interestingly, how she felt about the test, as you'll see when the video comes up, is the angle. Like I don't like to just say, here's what happened. In fact, how many videos are just, I train like the Rock and here's what happened.
Yeah.
I don't like, I like to have a story. This is Casey Neistat stuff. This is set up conflict resolution. This is, if you're watching a TV show, you want that arc, and YouTube should be the same. So I have that narrative arc for the video, and actually comes down to her not enjoying it and how that impacted on the results. So there's those things happen, things that just happen in our day-to-day life of being fitnessy people that we film, they become videos. Then there are, I get sent a lot of kit. You'll know when you as soon as you have any followers on YouTube, people want to send you kit, and the more followers you get, the more quality the kit becomes. Yep. So on day one, I'd get very excited because numerous companies would send me typically Chinese copies of kit that I could have 1,400 Chinese massage guns if I wanted.
Oh yeah.
that all look like probably an American or British made Chinese massage gun that the patent wasn't quite locked down on. So, I ignore all that because I don't want to be selling rubbish. Yeah. But what's happened lately is that companies have started saying to me, hey, here's actually a really interesting product. Or what's been amazing is I've seen a really interesting product and thought, that looks really cool. And I'll email them and say, hey, don't you know who I am? And then bonkers, they just send me them. I mean, it is. So we have literally just put in our app. We are going to have a video that comes up on Wednesdays every now and again called What Did I Get Sent Wednesday? And it's basically going to be the latest cool thing that someone sent me, and is it any good, is it not? And so, for example, the other day I got sent some goggles for swimming that have a head-up display in them that tells you what your watch is. I mean, cool.
Super cool. Yeah.
So I've got lots of things like that that are just cool. So that obviously forms a video, and I'm very careful to only put stuff on YouTube that is either stuff that I love using and just stand behind, like my Garmin watch and stuff like that, or stuff that I just think is just damn cool. And who wouldn't want to see goggles with a head-up display in them? I mean, that's just anyway. What I try and avoid doing is anything that's kind of too product placementy and just kind of nasty commercial stuff.
I think my favorite so far is I got an email last week about a hair dryer. Take a look. A smart hair dryer.
What is funny is when those companies email you and they say stuff like, we've watched all your videos and we think you'd be great. And you think, really? Have you watched my videos? I'm not so sure, because I don't think I do want to advertise your bracelet or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So that happens. And then the third thing is just video ideas that I think are a little bit kind of YouTube-y. And that's stuff like the how fast am I relative to Eliud Kipchoge or Steve Redgrave, the rower, or Bradley Wiggins. I've got one coming up on how fast or how fit am I compared to NBA players. We're going to take some of the NBA combine results, and so they're very YouTube-y, but also they're genuinely interesting and informative. I mean, it is interesting. When people watch someone like Steve Redgrave rowing at the Olympics, they just think, oh yeah, he's rowing. I mean, anybody big could do that. And it's interesting to say, hang on a minute, I'm bigger than he is. He's destroying me. Again, I find that entertaining, but also educational, stretching it, but informative. So they're the three things. Just what are we doing with our lives? What cool stuff have I been sent? And then dipping our toe into the slightly more YouTube-y world, but pulling back from going full hog and doing a kind of, I trained like Chris Hemsworth for 10 minutes and ate the Rock's pancakes. Here's what happened.
Yeah.
There's a market for it, and if you're doing it and it's working for you, good. But it doesn't float my boat, as it were.
You touched on rock climbing a little bit there, though, but I'm curious. I mean, I know you ride a bike, I know you run, which we'll talk about more in a minute, because I'm mainly a runner and I have some questions. But do you do anything else that people may not assume from you, like rock climbing, ice climbing, rowing, any of that stuff?
I unfortunately I don't do as much as I'd love to do. I mean, I got a couple of kayaks in the garden that I haven't been in for a year. I love kayaking. I do a little bit of indoor rock climbing because of my Spartan races, which involves monkey bars and stuff. I weigh 220, so I'm too heavy for monkey bars really. So I started doing indoor climbing to improve my grip strength. So what happens with those sorts of sports is I tend to think, what do I lack? What? If the zombie apocalypse starts tomorrow, where am I weak? Could I climb up a mountain to escape them? No, I probably should go and do some rock climbing. That sounds fun. I like to just make sure I can do a bit of everything. I mean, for example, I'm going to do some boxing this year.
Oh boy, I'd hate to be the guy on the other end.
Well, you say that. I've never boxed anything or anybody ever in my life. I can't remember the last time I was ever in a fight. Probably when I was about 13. I don't even remember how it ended, so that's a long time ago. but I love the idea, and you hear all the time, boxers are so fit, and I'm a huge Rocky fan, and he's running all the time, and I think, how can those guys be running and be so big? Are they as fit as they look? Or I'm fascinated by that. How fit are they? So take someone that is reasonably fit in traditional things like running and cycling, stick him in a boxing session. So for me, that's just interesting. Hopefully people find it interesting. And it's another tick box. Can I box? No, I can't box, but I'll be better at boxing than I was the day before.
The real question is, are we going to get to see Mark Lewis get his ass kicked on his own YouTube channel?
Yeah. Well, what was interesting was a lot of people said to me, you can't do a boxing video and demonstrate what you're going to demonstrate, which is that it's physically enduring, because the physical enduring part of it is getting punched. Just going and skipping in a gym isn't going to test. And I thought, you've missed the point. I want to go and get punched within reason. I mean, I understand that the thing that makes boxing tough is maintaining your composure and controlling your adrenaline while getting, the Tyson quote, isn't it? Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Yeah. So while I don't want to be disfigured in any meaningful way, I want to know what it feels. I mean, it's quite funny. As a 48-year-old father of four, grandfather, I've got no idea what it is like to get someone smack you in the ribs, and someone big, because I'm assuming I'm a heavyweight, super heavyweight probably. What's that like to have a big guy punch you and still have to bounce around?
That's why I learned how to run, to get the hell out of there if anything bad happens,
Yeah, but what if you get cornered? Yeah, you're not thinking it through.
That's rock climbing. Then you go up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would be annoyed if those zombies come and I can't get out, and I have to now box, and I've never done it. I don't want the first person I fight to be a zombie. I want to have at least prepared somewhat.
Yeah, good point.
Beforehand.
Good point.
Yeah, these are valuable life lessons.
I'm curious about your running. So I think you've run a 100K. Is that right, or is it a 50K?
That's my furthest. I've done 3 or 4 50Ks. I've done one 100K. I'm not a natural runner. I started running at 35 years of age when I weighed about 340.
Wow.
So I say started running. I started moving quicker than walking. It wasn't running by any description, and basically lost weight and got quicker. So I went from like a 42-minute park run 5K to 19:06 or something. So 5K suits me. I'm not an ideal 5K runner, obviously. I don't look like Mo Farah, but it suits my mentality. I like those 20-minute windows where I just think, for 20 minutes, I'm not going to die. Let's just go balls to the wall. Let's push it as hard as possible. It's why I love the VO2 max test I did with Jen the other day. She hated it. I loved it. In my head, when that treadmill was getting steeper and steeper, and my pulse is going up, I'm thinking I'm Ivan Drago in Rocky IV when the treadmill's going up and up. That to me is what's happening. I love that 20-minute window. So 5K I love, and I've recently started doing some shorter distances, doing some 400-meter stuff on track. I love that. I'm going to do more of that this summer. As soon as you go beyond 5K, I'm becoming less and less comfortable, but still enjoy it. I do enjoy being able to go and run 20 miles. I run in the Welsh Mountains sometimes, and I love that feeling of, well, you're a runner, of just being able to know that your body can just keep doing what you're doing. I never used to have that feeling as a younger person, just lifting all the time. But when you're running across a mountain and you just know that you might have hours to go, miles and miles to go, but it doesn't matter. Your body can just do it. You just keep on going. I find that an incredibly, it sounds very pompous and silly to say it, but it kind of feels like I'm doing what my body was designed to do. It feels very, very primal. That's the word I was looking for. Especially when I'm running through the woods and stuff. If I'm running off road with my dog through the woods, it just feels like you could put me back 10,000 years and that would be a value there. In a way, actually, that many things like the guys that are massive and jacked, you put them back 10,000 years, they would just get eaten by a bear. There is it has very little value. But yeah, I find running distance, which I'm not great at, just incredibly therapeutic, and I can think. And I love the feeling of it. 100k is probably getting to that stops happening at 100k. I start thinking this sucks. But the reason I do the 100k is it's fun for YouTube. I mean, it is that's a nod to people just like to see someone in trouble. That's me on 100k.
Have you ever considered anything longer than 100k, or is that where you're kind of capping it for now?
Yeah, I wanted my before I did the 100k, my plan was to run 100 miles because 100 miles sounds like well, when you say to people 100k, especially Americans, they'll often go, "Oh, what's that in real money?" And you go, "It's about 60 miles." Yeah. And they go, "Oh, 60 miles, like, oh, whatever." Where 100 miles is 100 miles. Everyone knows what 100 miles is. So, but then I did the 100k and thought, screw 100 miles. I mean, this is nuts. I mean, my 100k, which was pan flat, took me 15 plus hours and destroyed my body. I mean, I have the same event coming up in September this year, and
you must be excited. After you just said you got destroyed, you followed that up with, well, it's coming up again.
Well, because I went into it wanting to run 14 hours. I'd been told if you do this particular event in 14 hours, it's along the Thames Path, River Thames. So it's out of London, basically towards where I live, in the direction of where I live. And obviously running along the river, so it's flat. And it's a lovely run, but it's not very challenging. I've been told 14 hours is a good time. It's the equivalent of a 20-minute park run. It's like, oh, you did it in 14 hours? You're not too bad at all. So I set off with a target of 14 and very, very quickly realised I wasn't going to make 14. So I reset to 15. And this sounds ridiculous, having just said it's a very simple run. I got lost on that run. There's a crossing over a bridge and I missed the crossing.
Oh no.
And then 2k past it, I had to come back. I mean, it was a whole disaster. I was channeling my inner David Goggins to get over the whole experience. It wasn't working. So I ended up hitting 100k on my Garmin at exactly 2 seconds before 15 hours. But because I'd gone wrong, had 4k still to go and was dead, so basically almost walked that last bit, ended up doing nearer 16 hours. So, and it annoyed me. I'd gone off too fast. Basically, I think had I known what I now know about running 100k, I could have run that 100k in 14 hours. So my plan this year, this is why I say to people, don't do what I do. I'm not going to train for the 100k. I'm going to train for my High Rocks event, which involves lots of 1k intervals. I mean, it's a complete opposite style of training.
Yeah.
Because I believe that I am fit enough without training for it to just turn up at the 100k, run it really sensibly, knowing my limitations, which basically means run it really slow at the beginning, but hold that pace and come in at sub 14 hours. So I'm excited to see if what I think would have happened if I'd run it right will happen. Almost training for it would be cheating in a way, because of course if I train for it I'll be better. I want to see if I was good enough last time but just did it badly, ran it wrong, as it were.
Oh man, I already have so many clickbait titles for that video. You've got I ran 100k without training. What it's like to run 100k without training. It's going to blow up. You're good.
Well, I ran 100k without training again.
There you go. Dot. Yeah.
And it's stupid. I mean, don't try this at home because it is a long way. I mean, it is. Not kidding. It's when you are running into the night and you are completely exhausted along a river, no less. That there were literally times where I was thinking, I am going to black out. I need to. I had to keep my head very still as I was running, because literally, if I turned my head too fast, my blood sugar levels were so low that I would get dizzy. I was literally on the verge of passing out. In fact, the very last Marshall station, as I left to go past the Marshall, I was literally practicing before I ran past them in the dark. a sentence. I forget what my sentence was. Something like, "Hey, nice night for a run," or something sort of joking.
Wow.
I thought, practice the sentence, because if they ask me something and I have to think of an answer, my brain won't be able to do it, and they'll say to me, "You're toast, mate. Stop.
Yeah.
We're going to get you an ambulance." So I kind of jogged past and, "Hey, nice night for a run," and they were like, "Yes, it is." And off I went into and as I ran past them,
And then you fell over in the distance.
Yeah, almost. I remember thinking, I remember there was somebody ahead of me. I could see the red of their rear head torch. I just remember thinking, they can't be in the water, so follow that red dot. Don't fall in the river. I was literally, I was at breaking point.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny when people talk about ultras and they, like my wife, for instance, she's never run an ultra. I mean, so I ran an ultra there was two options. There was a 32 miler or a 40 miler. And for most people, they're like, well, it's only 8 miles more. Like, what the heck? Why? You might as well do the extra, but they don't realize it's another, 1,500 feet of elevation gain, and it's another 3 hours on the trail. And at that point, you had already run 32 miles. So you're very tired.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to it than just that, So from 50, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's very, the problems become very exponential as well. So, so what happens is, you're right. Like, for example, when you get to the last 5K, you're thinking, well, it's only 5K. I've run 95. I've got 5K to go. That's a park run. But it's not a park run, because you're now doing it with literally zero glycogen reserves. Your body has nothing left. So maybe the K before was okay because you had a tiny bit of energy left. It's a bit like a car running out of petrol and saying, well, we should be fine because we were just fine. Yeah, but you're not out of petrol. But something different has happened, and your body does hit walls that people don't encounter in normal life. And when you hit a wall of things like zero glycogen, you have no fuel. That's it. You are done. And you just have to wait for your body to burn some fats and provide that energy, and that just doesn't happen quick enough. It doesn't happen quick enough for you to be stood up, for example. Your body says, let's lie down, where blood pressure doesn't need to be quite so high, and we can basically burn some fats while you're on the floor unconscious, and we'll keep you alive. That's what your body's trying to do. It's saying that's what fainting is. It's get you low, make getting blood to the brain easy, and while you lie there unconscious, we'll burn some fat, and you'll come back to life. And you're saying, no, don't do that. Keep me able to run. And the body's going, well, there's nothing to do. There's no fuel to do that. And you can have as much willpower as you like. If you don't, it's like the car engine. I don't know, willpower this car with no petrol to work.
Do you think there's any merit? Do you think there's any merit to the whole? So like, there's a couple of people who have run 100 miles with no calorie intake. That's all the ketosis talk. Are you ever going to try that out? Or are you experimenting with that at all? One of the problems I have slightly, I did a keto diet to lose weight originally. So I got heavily into monitoring whether I was producing ketones and running and training fasted and ketosis and all that stuff. The problem I have slightly now is that as I'm now vegan, and I've been vegan literally for 1 year and will stay vegan, it's very hard to do anything remotely ketoic, if that's even a word, as a vegan, because there's so many carbohydrates in everything you eat. I mean, you're living on beans and pulses and lentils and stuff. It's a very carb-heavy diet. So I've kind of given up operating on fats the way I used to. And also my high rocks, which is very explosive and intense, requires carbohydrates. So I've kind of transitioned away from ketosis and fat burning to just thinking, no, carbohydrates, they burn easy, they burn fast. Yeah.
I'm always going to be able to find some. So I will, go with the flow. It works. I enjoyed keto, and I lost a ton of fat being in ketosis. And people will say that's just because of calories, and yeah, maybe, but it worked for me. But now, as a vegan, it's just easier to just you have so many, not problems, but you have so many things you need to think about when you're vegan. That then thinking about, how many grams of carbs have I had today is just another. I don't need another thing to think about with my diet.
Yeah.
Just getting enough.
What's a if you're gonna just go all out and go like full cheat meal, eat whatever you want, what's like the first thing Mark Lewis will hunt down?
Oh, a burger. I mean, a burger. A Burger King plant-based burger.
Wow.
One of the reasons I went I went vegan. In fact, I have a video coming soon because we've just completed our first one. It was 1st of June was our first year vegan, and I went vegan on day one, planning to be vegan for 7 days because I thought it would help me eat healthy. It would be fun for YouTube, and it would support my wife who was going vegan and was always going to stay vegan. I thought I'll do it for 7 days, cheer her along, and then go back to meat. So on the 31st of May last year, I had 2 double Whoppers from Burger King. They were the last piece of meat I ever ate, and I enjoyed them very much. And I immediately discovered that actually the health aspects of being a vegan are non-existent, or they don't have to be existent, because there's nothing healthy or unhealthy about being a vegan. It's like saying, it's like saying if you eat in America, is it healthy? Well, you can eat healthy in America, or you can eat unhealthy, but it makes no difference. So being a vegan is the same. You can eat terribly as a vegan or brilliantly. So cheat meals, yeah, I can jump on the phone and get Domino's to come round with as gross a pizza as they ever could pre-vegan. It makes no difference. Haagen-Dazs, Ben and Jerry's do amazing vegan ice creams. So my cheat meal is 10,000 calories a day of just burgers and pizzas and ice creams. It's what it always was. It's donuts. It's incredibly easy to be a fat vegan. No question whatsoever.
I'm curious. I'm curious. Do you drink alcohol, or is that something you avoid as well?
No, people ask about it all the time. I don't drink. I don't drink much alcohol. I'm not a non-drinker.
Yeah.
So here's how alcohol works. This is maybe a bit deeper than needed to answer the question, but I'm a big guy. So when I was 15, 16, I'm going out with my friends drinking as a kid. I was always very aware that as a bigger person, I was more likely to end up in trouble. People like picking fights with the bigger person. So I was always terrified of getting drunk on a night out and then finding myself in trouble. I'd look at my normal sized friends and think, no one here is saving me. So I need to save myself. So I would always go out and be sober, not because I didn't like drinking, just because friends would go, oh, I blacked out last night, I can't remember what happened. It's never happened to me. I've always been able to get myself out of a pickle. Not that I got in many or any, but I didn't like that feeling of being out of control or not able to control my surroundings. So I didn't drink. And then before I knew it, I was like 25, 30 and I'd just not drunk. I'd lived on Diet Coke my whole life. And then when I thought, well, I probably should drink now because I'm doing socials at work and stuff, I would try drinking beer and lager in the UK a lot and think, I don't get it. I don't get how people can drink volumes and volumes of alcohol. I don't understand. My body can't do that. So I would drink JD. Little drinks. That's
when you got in fights at work.
Well, it just made sense to me. I thought I can drink a little tiny drink. That's easy to do. But equally, I wasn't very good at drinking because I'd never drunk. So I'd have 2 double JDs, and I'm now tipsy. So I'd stop drinking, and that's basically been how I drunk for the rest of my life. I never drink at home. We just don't. There's no rule. We just don't drink at home. Yeah. But if we go out, we're out the other night. We probably go out maybe twice a month. And maybe once on those occasions I'll drink. I might have 2 or 3 JDs and Coke, at which point I'm feeling a bit tipsy. And it kind of harks back to when I was a kid. Jen drinks the same style, but she won't stop it. She'll drink to get drunk, but she won't worry about when she stops.
Yeah,
because she doesn't need to, because she's with me. She doesn't care what happens to her because I'm there to look out for her. So if we're out in London or something where we often go out for an evening, I'll have a couple and stop, and I'm just fine with that. I've never understood getting blind drunk. It's just never ticked
Well, now
my
with
box.
your new Gen 2.0, I think you called her in one of your videos. She can protect
Yeah.
you now down the road, so you can have a couple more drinks. She can be your protector.
Well, yeah, that would be I genuinely am looking forward to her being able to do something. I say this about my kids. I love the idea that somebody around me can outperform me at something. I would find that massively motivating. She has a disadvantage. She's a 125-pound female, so she's going to struggle. My kids have a disadvantage because they're just not as good as me. But I don't think that what Jen will outperform me at is rescuing me on a night out in London. She might be able to run better than me one day, but if things go south in Chinatown, I'm not sure calling on Jen, no matter how many burpees she can do, is going to be my get out of jail card.
Does she like being part of the YouTube channel, or is it something you had to convince her to be into?
I think she likes being part, because who wouldn't? She likes being part of a job, because we treat YouTube as our joint venture. So when we met, she started working with me / for me in my other business, and that business was going. So she was at one point thinking, well, I'm going to have to get a real job now. And I said, well, look, this YouTube thing's going mad. Why don't let's just do it together? And who wouldn't want to just do YouTube rather than any other job, really?
That's awesome.
So she likes that. She's also amazing. Literally one of the reason I married her. She's amazing at being offered an opportunity to do something cool and just going, okay. When I motorcycled around Africa, she didn't have a motorcycle license or anything. I said, almost jokingly, you should get your motorcycle license. We can go back to Africa and we would ride together. She was like, yeah, okay. 6 months later, we're riding through the Karoo Desert on motorbikes. And,
wow.
And, so
that's awesome.
She is, and when I said YouTube, I said, look, she filmed me doing high rocks. And I said, yeah, mixed doubles. That looks fun. We should do that. And expecting her to just sort of blow the idea off. But she said, yeah, okay, let's. Now, what's interesting is that sounds, a lot of people say to me like, wow, she's a keeper. Someone that would just go, okay, let's just do that. What's interesting is that she approaches things like that with this almost, I don't mean this negatively, a sort of childlike naivety. It's just like, that sounds cool, which is an amazing way to be. It doesn't matter how old you are. You should just, if someone says to you, do you want to try X? You should always just say, why not? Why not? So she has that. Brilliant. The downside is that what she doesn't have necessarily is the confidence in herself to then push herself in that thing. So, for example, we're riding across the Karoo Desert in the middle of Africa, where if you fall off your bike, and people would say to me, what happens if you fall off in the middle of the desert? Well, you die. That's what happens to you. You die out there. So don't, but equally, so don't fall off. And also, if you fall off on the motorway in this country, a lorry drives over your head. So don't fall off there either. Don't worry. So we're doing something incredible and exciting and a bit dangerous, but mostly exciting. And I'm loving it. I'm thinking this is heaven. I've got me, my motorbike, my wife. This doesn't get any better. She's constantly thinking, I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to do this. What happens if this? What happens if that? And every night on that trip, I'm saying to her, you just did it again. You got us. You got yourself from A to B, 300 miles through a desert. Tomorrow you'll be more confident because you've just done it. But she won't. The next day she'll be just as scared is the wrong word, lack of confidence. The same is now happening with this. We go into the VO2 max test the other day. I go into that test thinking, I won't be happy unless the treadmill starts to smoke because it physically It physically can't keep up with my awesomeness. You know, my ego is so many light years ahead of my old body. It's ridiculous.
That's funny.
But that's what I'm thinking, and it works really well. It means that I always find my limit because my head will go way beyond. I have limits, obviously, and they're not actually that high. But I always find them because my head's going, like when I did the Steve Redgrave row, in my mind, I'm beating Steve Redgrave. and I don't, but I get to the point of near death trying. So I do the VO2 test and love it. And I'm just disappointed that the thing didn't go vertical for me to run up. She does it, nervous, apprehensive, fearful that she's going to fall off, or the computer machine that we don't even understand what it does is going to flash up, fail. I mean, she just has every negative thought going. Yeah. And what's fascinating, and this will come out in the video, is that filtered through to her results. So she underperformed in that test. Basically, my performance would have been X, but I got X plus 2 because of my mental state. Her performance would have been Y. She got Y minus 5 because of her mental state. And so, she'll go, cool, let's go do a VO2 max test. But then when she gets there, she'll have no confidence. So what I'm hoping will happen over the next 6 months is that she won't necessarily, she will get fitter, but actually what will be fascinating and brilliant to see, and hopefully interesting for people watching to see, is somebody get confidence in what they're doing, and that make a big difference to what they can then do. Because she could do so much more than she currently does with just flicking a switch in her head. And I find that whole psychology of sport and performance for the lay person to be fascinating. It's not just Usain Bolt who has to worry about getting his head in the game. If you run a park run in 23 minutes, I guarantee you could run one in 22 and a half. If I had a gun to your head or your kid's head or your dog's head, and said run it 30 seconds faster, or the dog gets it, you'd run it 30 seconds, unless you hate your dog, you'd run it faster. And I find that sports psychology side of it just fascinating when you plonk it on just regular everyday people.
Big part of it is mental, and I do wonder if there's any like component in there that might be a little bit of imposter syndrome of having the cameras rolling around her during that process. Do you think that might have played a role in that?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I was going to do a video on imposter syndrome a little while ago because there was a period where a lot of YouTubers were talking about it, and it was just kind of a buzzword at the time. Mm-hmm. And I thought I have reverse imposter syndrome.
How do I get that?
Well, yeah. And I kind of thought I should tell people this is a thing because it's really handy. I have always, as a younger person, I did have it. But since I got back into fitness properly, I have loved standing at the very front of a park run at 6'6" and 220 pounds, and people looking at me thinking, you're just going to be in our way. What is this big lump doing here? I love that. I love people thinking, you shouldn't be here. And then I almost have to live up to that. It just drives me to, I think, well, I better be flipping quick because everyone thinks that I'm an idiot. So I really enjoy that. I think one of the interesting things is because I'm tall, as a youngster, young tall people might get this, you stand out wherever you are. And it's very easy. You see a lot of tall people, they kind of walk around slouch. They don't want to stand out. I was like that. I've embraced now the fact that I can't walk into a room, whether it's a pub or a fitness event, without people seeing me and now recognizing me sometimes. And I've just learned to embrace it. I've learned to think, yeah, I am here and I'm going to crush it. And I might not. I might be rubbish, but I don't worry about that. I just let myself think, I deserve to be here, even when I don't. She has quite possibly the much more normal and probably healthier in some ways attitude that is, yeah, you're right, a camera's on me, thousands of people are going to see it. They are going to be thinking, why watching her? Literally that. And I, no matter what I say to her, there are millions of people out there that are going to find what you're doing inspirational and useful and beneficial and funny and all positive things. You're right. It is a mindset switch that you have to make from why would people to watch me to why wouldn't people watch me? I put a video out now. If I hit upload and at the end of the day it hasn't already had X number of views, I'm disappointed, but I'm also surprised. I'm left thinking, why not? That was good. Why didn't? Which is, I mean, in a way, it's clearly it's an ego thing, but it's actually very useful to have because
I think that's a good headspace, because for me, when my videos underperform, I'm like, I should just delete that. So I think you got it.
I think people are wrong. Not people are wrong, because people that watched it are right. That whatever, the algorithm's gone wrong. There'll always be. I remember I used to do stand-up comedy, and I can remember telling a really good joke once, and no one in the room laughed at all. It was just dead, and I can remember being annoyed almost. I was like, "What? Are you guys serious?" Like, I remember one guy who was a bouncer, I think, over in the corner of the room laughed. I was like, right, that was a funny, like, what is wrong with you people? Probably why I wasn't a very good stand-up comic. But equally, that attitude of, why wouldn't people laugh? Why wouldn't people find it entertaining? It's a very good one to have when you're churning out stuff that you want people to watch. To a certain extent, you can't be always second guessing yourself because you'd never get anywhere. You just wouldn't. You have to just think that's good enough. Casey Neistat, one of the things that I took from him, he always used to say along the lines, I think it's perfectionism is the enemy of good enough, or words to that effect. I sometimes I look at a video and I think, could it be better? Could it be better? Could it be better? And I think, no, that's good. And that's good enough. Upload, done.
I like that. What is the word? I think the phrase I was thinking of is done is better than perfect. I've heard that one a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. And YouTube is more that than anything. You're not making fine art. You're not making you're not putting 3 or 4 months into something that has to kind of stand in isolation for the next 20 years. You're making not throwaway content at all, because people go back and watch my videos from 2 years ago and enjoy them. But you are making slightly more throwaway content than sometimes people think they're making. When I make a video, I don't worry if it has a reference that's going to be lost in a couple of years' time. There'll be another video they can watch in a couple of years' time.
Sure.
A lot of the times I just think, no, that's done. I've worked over 3 days. Just draw a line in the sand, for God's sakes, hit done.
All right, we are approaching an hour and 20 minutes mark. I don't want to take up your whole day. I want to wrap up this conversation with a final question for you. What is one top secret YouTube channel that Mark Lewis watches in his spare time that none of his viewers or anybody would assume he watches?
Well, that's interesting, because when you asked the question, I was immediately thinking of a bunch of channels that people would assume I watch.
The one that they wouldn't assume you watch, like building a ship in a bottle. Maybe you're watching, painting.
I know what it is, and I forget I forget what the guy's called. And this is an incredibly useful channel for anybody watching YouTube, wanting to do YouTube to watch. There is a guy who is a bit of a drainage plumbing expert, I think.
I've watched it. I've watched this stuff where they unclog like epic drains. Yes. And
all the water rushes away. Him.
Yeah.
So he for people that don't know, basically when there's been a storm and the road is flooded, he'll rock up with his rake and his Wellington boots, and he basically unblocks the drain. The water gushes away. He'll then go and find the little stream that it gushes to and make sure it's flowing, and the road becomes a road again and stops being a lake. And I love that. I love it. And what's very useful is if you ever find yourself as a YouTube content creator getting bogged down in what typeface to use or whether your animations are spot on or whatever, go and watch that video or those videos, and you realize that actually there is more to transfixing someone's attention than fancy graphics or wacky edits. There is now the downside is I don't quite know what it is about him that I like, but no, I know it's no. But it does tell you that there is, you can do all the fancy drone shots, and that isn't necessarily what makes people not turn off your video. Sometimes you don't know what it is that makes them not turn off, so overthinking it, looking for it, is sometimes a bit pointless. It actually made me a more relaxed YouTuber because I thought, this guy's got 10 million people watching him stood in the drain, and I'm worried about whether, I don't know, whether my medals here are lined up properly for my backdrop, and
preaching to the choir, man. I know the drill. All right, Mark.
Drain Guy. Go watch Drain Guy. Yeah.
Quick shout out to Drain Guy. I don't even know the name of the channel, but I've watched it too. I think what draws me to it is there's something satisfying about the whirlpool that it creates when it just all the water just kind of gushes away, and I'm like, wow.
I'll tell you what. I mean, doesn't it just set up conflict resolution
in a
perfectly?
Nutshell. Yeah.
Here's a flood. Oh, I can't unblock it. Oh, I did. I mean, it's that's it. That's how that's how you tell a story.
All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate you carving out this time in your day. I know you've got a different time zone than me. It's been really enlightening to chat with you, and I won't take up any more of your time. If anybody out there wants to see Mark's content, I'm sure you have already if you're watching this, because you've probably been recommended his Phoenix 7 video, which is how I found your channel at some point. Congratulations again on the success of your channel. It's amazing to watch.
Thank you.
It's inspiring for me. You're older than me. You've got 4 kids like me, and it makes me think, hey, he's doing it. I'm on my way there too, hopefully. So Thanks again, Mark. And check out his channel on YouTube. Check out his website. Is it marklewis.com?
.co.uk.
.co.uk. marklewis.co.uk. And I'll link all of that down in the show notes of this podcast and on YouTube. Thanks again, Mark. Thanks for joining me. And gang, we'll see you next time. That wraps up this episode of the podcast. I want to thank Mark for taking some time out of his day to chat with me. It was a ton of fun. I learned a lot about him. I hope you learned a lot about him too. And again, if you want to check out his website, his YouTube channel, his Instagram, it'll all be linked in the show notes of this episode. Thanks again for watching and listening to this episode of the podcast, and I'll see you next week. Bye.